The email came through at 3:47 on a Tuesday afternoon while I was neck-deep in code, debugging a client's database that had more problems than solutions. Subject line: Transfer approval. Confirmed. Effective immediately. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam or some phishing attempt from overseas scammers who'd gotten creative with their corporate jargon. But something made me click it open. Maybe it was the logo at the top, our company's actual logo, not some pixelated knockoff. Maybe it was the signature at the bottom from Jennifer Matthews, our VP of Operations, whose emails I'd received dozens of times before. Or maybe it was just that sick feeling you get in your gut when you know something's wrong but your brain hasn't caught up yet. Dear Nathan Reeves, the email began, this letter confirms your voluntary transfer request to our Seattle office, effective 2 weeks from today. Your new position as Senior Systems Analyst will begin on April 1st with relocation assistance provided as outlined in the attached documentation. Please contact HR to finalize your moving arrangements and housing stipend disbursement. I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. Each time the words stayed exactly the same, which was the problem because I'd never requested a transfer to Seattle. I'd never even considered moving to Seattle. My entire life was here in Austin. My career, my friends, my house that I'd spent 2 years renovating room by room with my own hands, and most importantly, my wife. My wife, Lauren, who worked 3 floors above me in the same building as Chief Financial Officer. Lauren, who had access to every system, every form, every approval process in the company. Lauren, who I'd met 7 years ago at a company retreat and married 3 years later in a ceremony. Her mother still talked about like it was a royal wedding. I picked up my desk phone and dialed her extension. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Her voice, professional and polished, asked me to leave a message. I hung up and tried her cell. Straight to voicemail. That wasn't unusual. Lauren spent half her day in meetings with executives and investors, her phone perpetually on silent. But something felt wrong. That email wasn't a mistake. It was too detailed, too official, complete with HR contact information and a relocation package breakdown. Someone had submitted a transfer request in my name, and someone with authority had approved it. I grabbed my laptop and headed for the elevator, my mind racing through possibilities. System hack, identity theft, some bizarre administrative error. But even as I considered these options, I knew they didn't fit. Our company's security was tight, probably because we handled financial data for half the Fortune 500, and administrative errors didn't include detailed relocation packages and specific start dates. The elevator took forever. Each floor seemed to last an eternity while I stood there holding my laptop like it was evidence in a crime I didn't yet understand. When the doors finally opened on the executive floor, I walked past the reception desk where Vanessa, Lauren's assistant, looked up with surprise. "Nathan," she said, "Lauren's in a meeting right now with the board. It's scheduled until 5. "This can't wait," I said, already moving toward Lauren's office door. "Really, Nathan, you can't just barge in there when she's with the board members. They're discussing the quarterly projections and—" I wasn't listening anymore. I pushed open the door to find Lauren sitting at her conference table with 4 older men in expensive suits, spreadsheets, and financial reports scattered across the polished wood surface. Everyone turned to look at me, their expressions ranging from surprise to irritation. Lauren's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: surprise, confusion, then something that looked almost like guilt before settling into professional annoyance. "Nathan," she said, her voice carrying that edge she used when I'd crossed a line. "I'm in the middle of a critical meeting. This needs to wait." "No," I said, holding up my laptop. "It doesn't. I just got an email saying I've been transferred to Seattle. Care to explain that?" The room went silent. The board members exchanged glances. One of them, a silver-haired man I recognized as Richard Pemberton, our CEO, cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should give you 2 a moment," he suggested. Lauren's jaw tightened. "That won't be necessary. Nathan, we'll discuss this after my meeting. Please wait in my office. I've been voluntarily transferred across the country without my knowledge or consent," I said, not moving. "I think that warrants an explanation now, not later." Richard stood up, gathering his papers. "Lauren, we can reconvene in an hour. This seems like something you need to address immediately." The other board members followed his lead, filing out of the room with the practiced efficiency of people who'd learned when to make themselves scarce. When the door closed behind them, Lauren turned to me with fire in her eyes. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" she said, her voice low and furious. "I was presenting our financial strategy for the next fiscal year. Richard was about to approve a budget increase for my department, and you storm in here like some jealous husband making accusations." "Accusations?" I held up my laptop again. "This isn't an accusation. This is a confirmed transfer order with your signature on the approval chain." Lauren stood up and crossed to her desk, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She opened her own laptop and typed something, her fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced speed. After a moment, she looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Oh, that," she said, and there was something in her voice that made my stomach drop. That was Madison's idea. She thought it would be funny. If you enjoyed this opening and want to see how this story unfolds, please hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below, sharing your thoughts, and give this video a like. Your support helps us continue bringing you these powerful stories about real family struggles and betrayals. Now, let's get back to Nathan's story. Madison, her younger sister, 24 years old, perpetually unemployed despite her business degree, living in our guest house because Lauren couldn't say no to family. Madison, who I'd caught going through my home office files last month and claimed she was just looking for printer paper. Madison, who'd asked me detailed questions about my job, my projects, my career plans just 2 weeks ago over dinner. "What do you mean it was Madison's idea?" I asked slowly. Lauren waved her hand dismissively. She was curious about how the transfer system worked. I showed her the portal one day when she was visiting my office. She must have logged in later and submitted a request as a joke. You know how Madison is. She doesn't always think things through. A joke. My entire life getting uprooted across the country was a joke. I stared at my wife, trying to find some sign that she understood how insane that sounded. "Lauren, transfer requests require multiple approvals. Someone had to authorize this at every level. Your signature is literally on the approval chain." She shrugged, actually shrugged, like we were discussing something trivial. "I approve dozens of transfer requests every week, Nathan. I don't read every single one in detail." Madison must have slipped it into the queue, and I signed off without really looking. "You approved transferring your own husband to Seattle without noticing?" Lauren's expression hardened. "Don't take that tone with me. This is fixable. I'll send an email to HR canceling the transfer. You're making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be." I sat down heavily in one of her office chairs, my mind struggling to process what I was hearing. 7 years together, 3 years married, and my wife had just admitted that her sister had forged transfer documents. She'd signed them without looking, and she thought I was overreacting. "Does Madison have access to your systems?" I asked. Lauren hesitated just long enough for me to know the answer. "Sometimes," she admitted. "She helps me with administrative tasks occasionally. Filing, data entry, that sort of thing. Administrative tasks." Madison, who couldn't hold down a job at a coffee shop for more than 3 months, was handling administrative tasks for the chief financial officer of a major corporation. Madison, who'd failed out of 2 graduate programs, had access to systems that controlled people's careers and livelihoods. "Let me get this straight," I said carefully. "Madison has your login credentials, used them to submit a fake transfer request for me, and you approved it without reading it. Do you understand what you're telling me right now?" "Nathan, you're being dramatic. It was a prank that got out of hand. Madison didn't mean any harm." "Harm? Lauren, I could have lost my house, my projects here, my entire career path. What if I hadn't caught this email? What if I'd just shown up at the Seattle office because I thought it was legitimate?" "But you did catch it," she said, as if that made everything okay. "And now we're fixing it. Can we please move past this? I need to get back to my meeting." I stood up slowly, feeling something shift inside me. Something fundamental and irreversible. "No," I said. "We can't move past this. Not until you explain to me why you thought it was acceptable to give your sister access to company systems. Not until you explain why you approved a transfer for your own husband without even glancing at the paperwork. And definitely not until you explain why you think I'm being dramatic for being angry about this." Lauren's face flushed red. "You're upset," she said. "I understand that. But you're making this into something it's not. Madison made a mistake. I made a mistake by not reading the transfer request carefully. But mistakes happen, Nathan. That's part of life. This isn't a mistake, Lauren. This is negligence bordering on fraud. And the fact that you don't see the difference is terrifying. She grabbed her phone and started typing. I'm texting Madison now. She needs to apologize to you. Will that make you feel better? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. An apology? You think an apology fixes this? Madison committed fraud using your credentials. She submitted false documents to a corporation. That's a crime, Lauren, and you facilitated it by giving her access she shouldn't have had. Now you're threatening my sister with legal action? Lauren's voice rose. Over a prank? Do you hear yourself right now? I picked up my laptop and headed for the door. When I have to hear myself, I said quietly, is that my wife doesn't see anything wrong with what happened here. And that tells me everything I need to know. Nathan, wait. Lauren called after me, but I was already in the hallway, walking past Vanessa, who was pretending very hard not to have heard any of our conversation. I made it to the elevator before my phone started buzzing. Lauren calling. I declined it. She called again, declined again. By the third call, I turned my phone off completely and rode down to my floor in blessed silence. My office felt different now. The photos on my desk of Lauren and me on vacation in Colorado, at our wedding, at her company Christmas party last year, they all looked like images of strangers. People I used to know but didn't anymore. I opened my email and started going through the transfer documentation more carefully. The request had been submitted 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks, which meant this wasn't some spontaneous prank Madison pulled on a whim. She'd planned this, executed it, and gotten away with it because my wife gave her the access and authority to do so. The relocation package was generous. A $15,000 moving allowance, 3 months of temporary housing, and a 12% salary increase to account for Seattle's higher cost of living. Someone had taken time to make this look legitimate, to include details that would make me believe it was real. My desk phone rang. Lauren's extension. I didn't answer. It rang again 5 minutes later. Then 10 minutes after that. Each time I let it go to voicemail. Finally, a text came through on my work computer since my phone was still off. From Lauren. We need to talk about this rationally. Come back upstairs. I typed back. Cancel the transfer through official channels. Have Madison's access to your systems revoked. Then we can talk. 3 dots appeared, showing she was typing. Then they disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, her response came through. You're being unreasonable. Madison is family. And I'm your husband, I typed back, which should count for something. No response after that. I sat at my desk for another hour, staring at my monitors without really seeing them, trying to figure out how my life had gone from normal to completely derailed in the span of one afternoon. Around 5:30, my phone powered back on and immediately started buzzing with notifications. 12 missed calls from Lauren. 6 voicemails, 15 text messages. I scrolled through them without reading most of them, catching fragments. You're overreacting. Madison feels terrible. We can fix this. Why are you being so stubborn? The last message was different. It came from Madison herself. Hey Nathan, I'm really sorry about the transfer thing. Lauren told me you're mad. It was just supposed to be funny. Can we talk about this like adults? Like adults. I was 33 years old, had been working in IT for over a decade, owned my own home, and managed projects worth millions of dollars. Madison was 24, lived rent-free in my guest house, and thought forging corporate documents was funny. But sure, let's talk like adults. I didn't respond. Instead, I started making calls of my own. The first was to Jennifer Matthews, the VP of Operations, whose signature had also been on the transfer approval. Her assistant put me through immediately. Nathan, Jennifer said when she picked up, I heard there was some confusion about your transfer request. Lauren reached out to me a few hours ago about canceling it. Was there actually a position available in Seattle? I asked. Jennifer paused. Yes, actually. We had an opening for a senior systems analyst. Your qualifications matched perfectly, so when the transfer request came through with Lauren's approval, I fast-tracked it. Was this not legitimate? The opening was real. That meant Madison or Lauren or both of them had researched open positions, found one that matched my skills, and deliberately crafted the transfer request to look authentic. This wasn't a prank. This was calculated. It wasn't legitimate, I told Jennifer. The request was submitted without my knowledge or consent by someone using Lauren's access credentials. Another long pause. That's a serious allegation, Nathan. Are you saying someone committed fraud using CFO credentials? I'm saying that's what happened, yes. And I need to know if this transfer has been officially canceled or if I'm still expected to report to Seattle in 2 weeks. I'll have HR send you confirmation of cancellation within the hour, Jennifer said, her voice now all business. And Nathan, I think you should document everything about this incident for your own protection. After I hung up, I sat in my office thinking about that phrase. For your own protection. Protection from what? From my wife? From my sister-in-law? From a company that apparently had security protocols loose enough to let this happen in the first place? My phone buzzed again. A text from my friend Derek, who worked 2 floors down in network security. Dude, heard you got into it with Lauren in front of the board. Everything okay? Word traveled fast in corporate environments. By tomorrow, everyone in the building would know that the CFO's husband had burst into an executive meeting making accusations about transfer fraud. Lauren would hate that. She was meticulous about her professional reputation, carefully cultivating an image of competence and control. Not okay, I texted back, but handling it. Derek responded immediately. Beer after work? You look like you could use one. I could use about 6, I typed. But I need to go home first. Check on something. What I needed to check on was Madison. Specifically, I needed to see if she was still living in my guest house, still enjoying the rent-free accommodation my wife had offered her without asking me, still treating my home like her personal playground where consequences didn't exist. The drive home took 30 minutes in Austin traffic, which gave me plenty of time to think. 7 years with Lauren. 3 years of marriage. In all that time, how many times had she put her family's needs above mine? How many times had she made unilateral decisions that affected both of us, then expected me to just go along with it because family comes first? Madison had moved into our guest house 18 months ago. Temporarily, Lauren had said, just until she gets back on her feet after her breakup. 18 months later, Madison was still there, still unemployed except for occasional gig work, still eating our food and using our utilities, and apparently, using my wife's corporate access to commit fraud for entertainment. Our house sat on a quiet street in Hyde Park, a renovated 1920s bungalow that I'd spent countless weekends restoring. New electrical, updated plumbing, refinished hardwood floors, a kitchen I'd gutted and rebuilt from the studs. Every nail, every board, every tile represented hours of my labor and thousands of my dollars. It was supposed to be our dream home, the place where we'd raise kids someday, the foundation of our future. Madison's car was in the driveway, a Honda Civic that Lauren had co-signed for because Madison's credit was shot. I parked behind it, blocking her in deliberately, and walked around to the guest house entrance in the back. I didn't knock. It was my property, my guest house, my utilities paying for her comfort. I opened the door and found Madison sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, a half-empty bottle of wine on the coffee table beside her. She looked up when I walked in, her expression shifting from surprise to defensive annoyance. Ever heard of knocking? She said. Ever heard of not committing fraud? I replied, staying by the door. Madison rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're still mad about that? Lauren said she talked to you. It was just a joke, Nathan. Learn to take a joke. I took a step closer, keeping my voice level. A joke is when you hide someone's stapler. A joke is when you switch their coffee to decaf. What you did was forge corporate documents, commit identity theft, and nearly derail my entire career. That's not a joke, Madison. That's a crime. She laughed, actually laughed, taking a sip of wine before responding. A crime? Seriously? You sound like a cop drama reject. Nobody got hurt. You caught it before anything happened. Case closed. I could have lost my house trying to relocate on 2 weeks' notice. I could have damaged relationships with clients here that I've spent years building. I could have had to explain to a new office why I'd requested a transfer I never actually wanted. But sure, nobody got hurt. Madison stood up, walking toward me with a confidence that seemed bizarrely out of place given the situation. Look, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt or whatever, but you need to chill out. Lauren's already fixing everything. The transfer is canceled. You're staying here. Everything goes back to normal. What more do you want? What I want, I said slowly, is for you to understand that actions have consequences. What I want is for you to take responsibility for what you did instead of minimizing it, And what I want is for you to move out of my guest house immediately." That wiped the smile off her face. "Excuse me? You heard me. Pack your things. You have until the end of the week to find somewhere else to live." "You can't kick me out," Madison said, her voice rising. "Lauren invited me here. This is her house too. You don't get to make that decision alone." "Actually, I do. My name is on the deed. I paid for this house. I renovated this house. And I'm done subsidizing your lifestyle while you treat my life like it's your personal joke." Madison grabbed her phone, already dialing. "We'll see what Lauren has to say about this," she said. I walked out of the guest house and back into my main house, leaving Madison to make her call. Inside, I went straight to my home office and started pulling files. The deed to the house, showing my name alone because I'd bought it 2 years before Lauren and I got married. The renovation receipts, showing thousands of dollars I'd invested in improvements. The utility bills, the property tax records, the homeowner's insurance, all in my name. Lauren had wanted to add her name to the deed when we got married. I'd said we should wait until after the wedding, then somehow it had never happened. At the time, I'd thought it was just procrastination. Now I realized it might have been instinct. Some part of me that knew I needed to protect what I'd built. My phone started ringing. "Lauren." I answered this time. "You can't kick Madison out," she said immediately. "No greeting, no preamble. She's family, Nathan. And I'm your husband. Which apparently means less than being your sister. That's not fair. You're upset. I get that. But you're taking this too far." I looked around my office at the space I'd created, the desk I'd built, the shelves I'd installed. Too far would be pressing charges against Madison for fraud and identity theft. Too far would be filing a complaint with HR about you giving unauthorized access to corporate systems. What I'm doing is setting a boundary that should have been set a long time ago. Lauren's voice softened, taking on that reasonable tone she used in negotiations. "Nathan, honey, let's talk about this in person. Come back to the office or I'll come home early. We can work this out like adults." There was that phrase again. Like adults. As if being an adult meant accepting unacceptable behavior because it was easier than confronting it. "The transfer is canceled, right?" I asked. "Yes, HR sent the official cancellation an hour ago. You're staying in Austin. Everything's fine." "Everything's not fine, Lauren. But you're right that we need to talk in person. I'll be here at the house. Come home whenever you're done with work." She arrived an hour later, pulling into the driveway behind Madison's car, which was still blocked by mine. I watched from the living room window as the two of them met in the driveway, Madison gesticulating wildly while Lauren listened with her arms crossed. After a few minutes, they both headed for the front door. I met them in the entryway. Madison started to follow Lauren inside, but I held up my hand. "This conversation is between Lauren and me," I said to Madison. "You need to wait outside." "I'm not waiting outside my own home," Madison shot back. "This isn't your home. It's mine. And you're not invited to this conversation." Lauren looked between us, clearly torn. "Nathan, Madison should be here. This affects her too. Then we can have separate conversations. But right now, I need to talk to my wife. Alone." Madison opened her mouth to argue, but Lauren touched her arm. "It's okay, Mads. Wait in the guest house. I'll come get you when we're done." After Madison left, slamming the door behind her hard enough to make the windows rattle, Lauren and I stood in the entryway of our house, strangers in a space that was supposed to be home. She tried to smile. "This has gotten out of hand. Can we just take a breath and figure this out calmly?" "I'm completely calm," I said. Probably the calmest I've been in years, actually. Because for the first time I'm seeing things clearly. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've been making excuses for a long time. For Madison living here indefinitely. For you prioritizing your family over our marriage. For the fact that every major decision in our life seems to get made by you without consulting me. But this situation with the transfer, it's like someone turned on a light. Lauren's expression hardened. "So what? Now you want to throw away 7 years together because your feelings got hurt?" "My feelings got hurt when you forgot our anniversary last year. My feelings got hurt when you canceled our vacation so you could help Madison move. This is different. This is about trust and respect and partnership, and I'm realizing we don't have any of those things." She stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. "That's not true. We have a good marriage. Do we? Because good marriages don't involve one partner giving their sister access to corporate systems. Good marriages don't involve approving life-changing transfers without even reading them. Good marriages don't involve defending fraud as a prank. It wasn't fraud, Lauren insisted. It was poor judgment. Madison made a mistake. Madison made a choice. You made a choice to enable it. And now I'm making a choice too. Lauren's eyes narrowed. What choice? I'm taking the transfer to Seattle. The words hung in the air between us. I hadn't planned to say them. Hadn't even fully decided until that moment. But as soon as I spoke, I knew it was right. You're what? Lauren's voice came out as barely a whisper. The position is real. Jennifer confirmed it. Senior systems analyst, better salary, new city, fresh start. I'm going to call her tomorrow and tell her I want the job after all. But you live here. Your whole life is here. My whole life was here, I corrected. Now I'm not so sure what I have here worth keeping. Lauren stepped closer, reaching for my hand. Nathan, don't do this. Don't throw away everything we've built together over something this stupid. I pulled my hand back. That's the problem, Lauren. You think what happened is stupid. You think Madison committing fraud is stupid. You think me being angry about it is stupid. But none of this is stupid. It's serious. And the fact that you can't see that tells me everything I need to know about where I stand in your life. So what, you're just going to run away to Seattle? That's your solution? I'm not running away. I'm choosing to build a life somewhere that I'm not constantly second-guessing whether my partner respects me. Somewhere my sister-in-law can't ruin my career for fun. Somewhere I can figure out who I am without being the guy who always compromises. Lauren's face flushed red. This is insane. You're being completely irrational. We can fix this. I'll talk to Madison. I'll make sure she apologizes properly. I'll revoke her access to everything. Just don't leave. Why shouldn't I leave? Give me one good reason why I should stay in a marriage where my wife approves relocating me across the country without even reading the paperwork. She didn't have an answer for that. Or if she did, she couldn't find the words. We stood there in our entryway, the house I'd rebuilt with my own hands, and I realized that everything I'd constructed here, not just the walls and floors, but the life itself, had been built on a foundation I'd mistaken for solid ground. I need you to leave, I said quietly. Take Madison and go stay at your parents' house or a hotel. I don't care which. But I need space to think, and I can't do that with you here. This is my house too, Lauren said, but her voice lacked conviction. Actually, it's not. It's in my name. And right now I'm asking you to respect my need for space. Can you do that? Can you respect something I'm asking for? Lauren stared at me for a long moment, emotions playing across her face too quickly to identify. Finally, she nodded. Fine. We'll leave. But Nathan, you're making a huge mistake. When you calm down and think about this rationally, you're going to regret pushing me away. Maybe, I said, or maybe I'll regret not doing it sooner. She left to pack a bag, and I heard her in the guest house a few minutes later, probably breaking the news to Madison. Raised voices carried across the yard, but I didn't go outside to referee. I was done mediating other people's drama. 20 minutes later, both cars pulled out of the driveway. I watched from the window as they drove away, Lauren in her BMW and Madison following in the Civic. When their taillights disappeared around the corner, I sank onto the couch and finally let myself feel the weight of everything that had just happened. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Still need that beer? I typed back, more than ever. But make it tomorrow. Tonight I need to be alone. Alone in my house, my empty house. The house that suddenly felt more like home than it had in years. I called Jennifer Matthews' office first thing the next morning. Her assistant put me through immediately, and when Jennifer answered, I could hear the curiosity in her voice. Nathan, she said, I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. Is everything all right with the transfer cancellation? Actually, I'd like to reconsider. Is the Seattle position still available? There was a pause. I could almost hear her mental calculations. The position is still open, yes. But Nathan, I have to ask, is this related to yesterday's incident? Because if there are workplace harassment concerns or retaliation issues, we need to address those through proper channels. It's not retaliation, I assured her. It's a decision I'm making for my own career development. The position sounds like a good opportunity, and I think a change of scenery would be beneficial right now. Another pause. I'm going to be direct with you, she said. I had a conversation with Lauren after you and I spoke yesterday. She expressed concerns about the transfer approval process and took responsibility for not thoroughly reviewing the request. But she also made it clear she doesn't want you to relocate. If you accept this position, it's going to create complications on multiple levels. I understand that, I said. But Jennifer, with all due respect, my career decisions shouldn't be dictated by what creates complications for my wife. If the position is available and I'm qualified, I'd like to be considered on my own merits. Fair enough, Jennifer said, and I could hear approval in her tone. Send me a formal acceptance email by end of day. I'll have HR draw up the official paperwork. You'll start in Seattle on April 15th. That gives you 3 weeks instead of 2, which should help with the logistics. After I hung up, I sat at my home office desk, staring at the blank email screen. This was it, the point of no return. I typed out the acceptance email, professional and concise, attached my updated resume, and hit send before I could second-guess myself. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Lauren. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again. Finally, I answered. Tell me you didn't accept the Seattle transfer, she said, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. I accepted the Seattle transfer. Nathan, no. You can't do this. We need to talk about this. We need to figure this out together. We tried talking, Lauren. It didn't work. You defended Madison. You minimized what happened. You made it clear where your priorities are. My priority is our marriage, she said, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I heard genuine fear in her voice. Nathan, please. I know I messed up. I should have read that transfer request more carefully. I should have never given Madison access to my systems. I should have taken your concerns seriously from the beginning. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just please don't leave. I'm not leaving because you messed up, I said. I'm leaving because when I expressed how serious this was, you called me dramatic. When I said I felt disrespected, you said I was overreacting. When I asked you to choose between enabling your sister and respecting your husband, you couldn't do it. That's why I'm leaving. I'm choosing you now, Lauren said desperately. I'll tell Madison she has to move out. I'll change all my passwords. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't go to Seattle. The thing is, Lauren, you shouldn't have to be forced to choose your husband over your sister. That choice should be obvious. The fact that it took me accepting a transfer across the country for you to even consider making it tells me everything I need to know. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. What about our marriage? What about the life we built together? What about everything we promised each other? We promised to respect each other, I said. To be partners. To make decisions together. You broke those promises long before I accepted this transfer. I'm just acknowledging what's been true for a while now. So that's it? She asked through tears. 7 years together and you're just done? You're not even going to try counseling or separation or anything else? Lauren, yesterday you approved transferring me to Seattle without even glancing at the paperwork. Today, you're asking why I'm taking the job. Do you see the irony in that? The line went quiet except for her breathing. Finally, she said, I love you, Nathan. I know I haven't been perfect, but I do love you. Doesn't that count for something? It counts for everything, I said. That's why this hurts so much. Because I love you too. But love isn't enough when respect is missing. And I can't keep living in a marriage where I constantly feel like I'm in third place behind your career and your family. Third place? Nathan, that's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you prioritized something I wanted over something Madison needed? When's the last time we made a major decision together instead of you announcing what you'd already decided? When's the last time you introduced me as your partner instead of Lauren Reeves's husband? She didn't have answers for any of those questions. We stayed on the phone for another few minutes, but there was nothing left to say. The conversation kept circling back to the same points. She was sorry, wanted another chance, couldn't believe I was really leaving. I was hurt, needed space, couldn't stay in a situation that made me feel invisible. When we finally hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the walls I'd painted, the shelves I'd built, the space I'd created. Then I started packing. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of logistics and emotional whiplash. I hired movers, put most of my furniture in storage, and found a furnished apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood through a corporate relocation service. I notified my clients about the transition, transferred projects to colleagues, and said goodbye to 7 years of professional relationships I'd carefully cultivated. Lauren tried everything. She showed up at the house unannounced, sent flowers to my office, left voicemails that ranged from angry to pleading to coldly rational. She offered counseling, suggested a trial separation without the relocation, proposed that she would move to Seattle with me. Each offer revealed just how little she understood about why I was leaving. Madison sent exactly one text message. "You're being a petty asshole about this. Hope you're happy ruining everyone's lives." I didn't respond. My last day at the Austin office, several colleagues took me out for drinks. Derek pulled me aside at one point, his expression serious. "You doing okay, man?" he asked. "This whole thing happened so fast." "I'm doing better than I have in years," I told him, and realized it was true. Yeah, my marriage was over. Yeah, I was leaving behind a life I'd spent years building.